Welcome back, everyone. I'm sure some of you are new, but if you've been with me for a little bit, you might know that I've taken a break from the show for the past couple of weeks. It was really nice to spend some time working on other things and spending some time with my family this summer. And if you are indeed new, let me introduce myself. My name is Chris, and you're listening to Chefs Without Restaurants, the show where I speak with culinary entrepreneurs and people working in the food and beverage industry outside of a traditional restaurant setting. For my full-time job, I work as a personal chef doing dinners and events in the Washington, D.C. area. Today is the start of what I'm calling Season 5, and my guest is Brad Leone. You might know Brad from his time at the Bon Appétit test kitchen. As more of the digital magazines and online media conglomerates started to create more and more video food content, Bon Appétit also wanted to follow suit. In 2016, the It's Alive series with Brad Leone debuted. Video content continued to grow, and in late 2018, Brad transitioned from his role as test kitchen manager to focusing exclusively on creating videos. But Brad has since left Bon Appétit, and in June he launched 2 new shows on his own YouTube channel. One is called Makin, and the other one is Local Legends. I don't want to talk too much about it here in the intro because we're obviously going to spend a lot of time talking about it on the show. We also talk about cooking on camera, fermentation and fermentation safety, and the art of storytelling and helping others tell their story. And before we start the show, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to check out this episode. I know there are a lot of podcasts out there, and you could easily be spending your time in many other ways, so I really appreciate it. My only ask from you this week is that if you enjoyed the episode, or the show in general, please share it with someone. I'll be promoting this episode on social media, so if you see the post maybe on Instagram, just share it to your story. Or if nothing else, be that annoying person at a party who likes to tell people about their favorite podcast. And the show is also made possible with the help of my sponsors. This week's episode is brought to you by the United States Personal Chef Association. So stick around, the show will begin right after a brief word from the USPCA. Are you a personal chef looking for support and growth opportunities? Look no further than the United States Personal Chef Association. With nearly 1,000 members across the U.S. and Canada, USPCA provides liability insurance, certification, lead generation, and more. Consumers can trust that their meal experience is insured and supported by USPCA. And now, for a limited time, save $75 on new membership and get your premier listing on Hire a Chef by using the code TAXBREAK2023 at uspca.com. That's capital T, capital B. Plus, if you have products or services to sell chefs and their clients, showcase your business on Hire a Chef and USPCA websites with our great introductory packages. To learn more about membership, advertising, or partnership opportunities, call Angela at 1-800-995-2138, extension 705, or email aprather@uspca.com. Hey, Brad, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
So before we get going, I have to ask, just how much caffeine do you consume before a video shoot?
It's funny. You're the second person to ask me that. I must give off that vibe. I definitely don't consume caffeine before a video. I'm actually kind of sensitive to it. I have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then that's it. I'm not a caffeine throughout the day kind of guy, as much as my obnoxious energy levels might steer you in the other direction.
Just a lust for life and a general excitement for the day.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not always like that. I'm kind of, a little more reserved as well when I'm by myself and a little bit more like introverted. I kind of plays the wrong word, but I kind of live in both worlds.
Myself, as well, I've always identified as an introvert, and now people say, well, you're not an introvert. You've got a podcast, you interview people, you go out and you do cooking lessons in front of groups. But, I think there's different ways to be an introvert or extrovert. It's kind of draining for me. Like once I get done with an interview or something, it's like I kind of just want to chill out by myself for a little bit.
Yeah, big time. I'm kind of like that with videos too. I guess it's a very unnatural thing, right? And maybe unconsciously that's me turning on a camera, even though it's not really turning on, because when I'm in that mood, it doesn't matter if it's kind of just a personality, but I guess that side of my personality comes out more when the camera's on, thankfully, because otherwise it would probably be a little sad and boring.
Well, and that's the whole new thing about food and cooking, especially in the, modern day media space, because it's entertainment, right? Like people are tuning in to learn about food and cooking, but they also want to be entertained. I feel like you don't have to, but like videos that are also funny and entertaining as well as educational, I think do really well. And that's something that brings the people in. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, especially in the platform like YouTube, right? Where it's like, again, you don't have to do anything, but it behooves you to post once a week, if not more, or something like that. Whatever your vibe is. And you're 100% right. Like I'm by no means an expert in anything, never claimed to be. I don't have a laundry list of credentials explaining why I'm the best at something. I never said I was. I'm just the same as the people who are watching, I'm just interested in food. I like people. I like the universal language of food and art and music and how they can all kind of come together and how they are kind of similar in ways. But yeah, it is entertainment. And I try my best to, flirt with both worlds of entertainment. I don't want to say education, but in a way, yeah, right. Just kind of learning with people as I, whether I'm doing something I'm familiar with or learning something in real time in front of a camera. A lot of the times when I make a video, I don't like cook it through. I don't like work it a bunch. It's not something that I've nailed down. What I want my shows to have is that human element of cooking. It's not all clean. I've done those, I've done plenty of no mistakes, highly zippered up, highly edited, highly produced videos, which are fun and fine. But I also like to have a little fun with it and kind of make it relatable, like accidents happening. And whether or not some shows or some, especially in TV, show that people go and follow you, say they watch my video and it's perfect, everything's perfect. And then they go, oh, and they're going to have a different experience. And, I don't care what you say, like any chef will tell you, you screw things up. You have to be able to kind of adjust and move on the fly a little bit, unless you're like making croissants or something. Like cooking for me, it is very, and maybe it's just because of experience and love for it, but it's kind of guided by a foundation of techniques that I've acquired throughout the years, and then just intuition, cooking from the gut.
Well, and for people who don't cook a lot, I think it can be intimidating. And I've talked to a lot of guests about this. And again, like showing mistakes, that someone like you makes mistakes, I think is really helpful, because people say to me all the time, well, I'm not a professional chef. And they get all, especially like if they're cooking for me or something, if I'm coming over for dinner, they get really nervous. It's like, well, I screw up things all the time, so I think it's good to kind of leave that stuff in.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to that, it's just making it approachable as much as you can. And my wife, she kind of sings the same song a bit, like, and I'm always like, babe, you could make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If someone makes you, there's something special about someone just preparing a meal or food for you. Like, I'm not picky. I'm not a food snob. I'm not going to say, these or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the act of cooking. And I tell people all the time, my wife included, you're a better cook than you let yourself be. You're a better cook than you tell yourself you're not. Don't overthink it. You're just making a steak with a salad, or, what I'm saying? It's as simple as it is, and as easy it is to take something that simple and really screw it up. At the same time, I think a lot of folks really kind of scare themselves into, I don't like cooking.
Yeah. And to be able to wing it a little bit, that's another thing I talk about is, the intuition, or just the, freestyling, try a new spice. Like, people are quite often too scared to try something new. Like, they have never worked with, I don't know, Ras El Hanout or something like that. It's like, well, just go buy a little at the store, try it a bunch of stuff. If you don't like it, no big deal.
Play around with it. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. No, I grew up in New Jersey, and my folks, they cooked I always had a meal cooked. It wasn't the best ingredients. My mom bought, whatever was on sale. It was probably clearance at the supermarket, Purdue chicken. But point being, she took the time and cooked it, and we all sat down and we ate together. And that's kind of where it was embedded in me, of just the joy of cooking and eating or preparing food for friends and family. And then also eating. Let's not say I really like eating, I really like food. And that's kind of where it all started for me to get into food.
Me too. I have a similar background. Well, I'd say you're probably best known for your time at the Bon Appétit Test Kitchen. Your show, It's Alive, started in 2016 or so?
Yeah, Bon Appétit was really where I got started in the food media world. Growing up, I worked in like delis and kind of, the ski resort restaurants, like deep fryer type of stuff. And, just more like food service and less like nice food. But I did learn the work ethic of working in a kitchen and what that meant before Food Network rock starred it all and made it people. And I went to culinary school, but like, people would get into, and I saw it when I went to culinary school. They would see this glorified chef life on TV and be like, man, I want to be a chef. But the reality of it and the lessons that I learned when I was working at those, resort hotel type of restaurants or a really busy deli was that's not it. You know what I mean? It's nights and weekends. It's hard work on your feet, low pay. No one gives a shit. And you got to do it again every day. And I mean, people that are chefs that do work in restaurants are some of the hardest working people. I mean, sure, you're cooking, right? You're not like roofing a house, but it's a different type of hard work. There's no doubt about it. And to think that you're going to go to culinary school and come out and be Gordon Ramsay or whoever, turns you on to that, it's just not a reality. But I went to a culinary school in Manhattan, and that's really where I saw a lot of people come in. And again, I had no idea what I wanted to do, or I got lucky in ways. Man, say there was 50 people in that class, I'd be surprised if 10 were in the food business still.
Same. Like I went to Johnson & Wales, and like when I talk to my friends or I see people on Facebook, it's like nobody's in the food industry anymore. A very small amount.
Yeah, let's say because it's incredibly hard, and it's not what a lot of people thought they were getting into. Like it's hard, especially you jump into something like New York and then go, jump into some crazy restaurants there where they're cranking out an insane amount of tops every night and the chefs yelling. And I worked at the Standard Grill while I was going to here in the Meat Pie in Chelsea in Manhattan. And I remember, and it was fun. I learned a lot there, but it wasn't one of the one thing I definitely learned there more than anything was that and not to talk trash on this place because it's a great restaurant. It's fine. But it was not the style of a kitchen that I did not want to work in that. I don't need someone yelling at me. I don't need someone throwing pots and pans. This big old school spectacle brigade fashion of cooking was not it for me. It turned me off. It turned me off to restaurants. It made me not want to do that. Not that all restaurants are like that, because they're certainly not. And I feel like that paradigm has certainly shifted into a more calm, collective, healthy atmosphere. That isn't just, screaming and yelling and doing drugs and drinking after, you know what I mean? Like the old school New York or even around the whole world, kind of restaurant life type of lifestyle. And I'm really glad that it seems to have gotten a much more respectable, diversified, and healthy place to work. And I mean, like it really showcased that creatively I don't. And some people thrive in that. They like that, and it becomes that camaraderie and that energy, but it made me not want to cook. It made me not want to make 85 pasta dishes in an hour. It made me want to just say, the hell with this, don't freak you. Don't yell at me because you didn't even teach me how to do this yet. Like, what are you yelling at? And that's where I was working at the Standard Grill when I was going to school because, I needed to pay my rent and I needed money, and school was not, the school cost you money. There was this one guy, older guy, and he was running the fry station. I wish I remembered his name because he was like my favorite person there. He was like the only one that was cool. He all he wanted to do was go surf, and he was like this older Mexican guy, and he was incredible. And I remember telling him one day, I was like, man, I'm in this culinary school. Everyone but him made fun of me. Brad, you're wasting your money. What the hell are you doing that for? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to learn how to be a chef, just start here. And in a way, they're right. But I was like, listen, man, I'm not trying to do what you're doing. Naive, ambitious me was like, I want to go work for like Unilever or like develop flavor ice creams. Like, there's so many cool jobs in the food industry since it's so big that, aren't just working the line. I mean, turns out those people are food scientists and have doctorates and stuff. And I was very not going to get that job. But I do remember saying to that one guy, I mean, there's got to be something cool like Food and Wine or Bon Appetit test kitchens where they're just, creating recipes for the magazine. And, this is before video, and really before any, print was still kind of king for Condé Nast and Bon Appetit at that time. I remember saying to him, I want to go work for that. And everyone did internships out of school at like big restaurants, with big big famous chefs and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to see if Bon Appetit will give me an internship. And I got lucky and they did. And they, I was the oldest intern they ever had. I think it was like 28 at the time. And everyone else was like coming in was like right out of high school. And I had this whole other life already, and I think they were refreshed by my personality and work ethic. I wasn't coming in thinking I was going to style the cover. I was like, I'll do anything. I'll watch. I was a glorified dishwasher and I couldn't be happier. You know what I mean? I was getting paid. I was working Monday through Friday and we weren't doing the same shit every day. It was amazing. I was learning. Most importantly, I was learning. I was seeing new ingredients. I was trying new things. That's really where I was exposed to different types of cuisines and ingredients and techniques and people. And I'll be forever grateful for that because it really helped kind of turn the light onto a path that I didn't know existed. And that was all print still. And that was me being test kitchen assistant and helping run the test kitchen, being test kitchen manager. And then eventually video started to happen. It was all short videos, 15 seconds on Facebook. No one wants to watch anything for 2 minutes, Brad. Everyone wants to skip that, just give them fast, clean, overhead, hands and pans. And we did that for a while. And like YouTube wasn't a thing. I wasn't on social media, nothing like that. And then they wanted to like get into, I think they were honestly playing catch up to other, probably BuzzFeed at the time, who was doing like trying different things and taking different risks. And long story short, they put a camera. They told this one guy, Vinny, at the time, they're like, Brad's always down in the test kitchen doing fun things. He's always got projects going. Just go follow him around. And the first video we shot was kombucha. And I was like, guys, we can't put this out. I look like I'm trying not to curse.
No, you can curse. This show's totally fine.
I was like, you can't put this out, man. This is a piece of shit. Like this video, I look like an asshole. The kombucha looks like trash. I'm spilling things on the ground. I look sloppy. I don't like it. And well, they put it out. It sat on a hard drive for a year and they edited it up. And I was like, oh, whatever, guys, fine. We shot a few more and I was like, let's put it out. It's not that bad. But they were like poking fun at me and the way it was edited kind of, and I'm not mad at it because it worked, but like it kind of leaned in on jabbing at me. And as I started to experiment more and that started to organically become more popular, there was such a good group of people in the kitchen when that started that before you know it, it kind of turned into a hive of a bunch of different YouTube shows and people. And that's kind of where it all started for me getting into video. And now, I'm super stoked. I'm out. I left New York almost 3 years ago now. And just this June, I started my own YouTube show. It's a channel, Brad Leone on YouTube. And the one show's called Local Legends and the other's Makin it. And yeah, so Local Legends is like a show where we're out in the world that's showcasing things from, kind of like what we were talking about before a little bit. Like instead of it all, I hardly interview chefs or go tell the story of a chef unless I'm really interested in it. And it's really, but like basically chefs, there's plenty of people doing chef stuff, right? Like what about the guy who grows amazing carrots?
Absolutely.
Raising chickens or you name it, growing sugar kelp up in Maine, which is a video we did with Atlantic Sea Farm. Like those are the stories I want to tell. The things that we kind of take for granted when we go and get that really awesome meal at a restaurant from a chef,
So how did you choose who you wanted to highlight on that show? Were they people you had already known of, or did you have to start doing kind of like a lot of research to figure out who those were going to be?
Luckily, working with Bon Appetit and in the test kitchen, I was exposed to a lot of people and a lot of places and a lot of things. And the internet's amazing. The community of people who are engaging in wanting to be a part of stuff and wanting to do stuff. And there's just so many stories out there. Honestly, creative isn't the problem. It's production. It's time and money. I have a million ideas and stories that we could showcase. It's just, putting it all together and doing it and editing it. And, I have a really awesome team now, Lady Hobson, who lives in Brooklyn, and a buddy of mine, Ian, who I met on a photo shoot he was up in Rhode Island. And they're my camera people, and Hobson is the editor as well. And we're just, we're doing, we're figuring it out. We put out a few episodes already, and those are the early ones. We're already I feel like we're already getting way better. It's like anything, I kind of compare it to a band, like we're really just finding our voice and our rhythm and our styles out. And I couldn't be prouder. I'm stoked on it. And that's the local legend one where it's travel. It's not at my house, right? So like the other show, Making It, which is a blast, is I moved up to coastal Connecticut on the border of Rhode Island, right outside of Mystic, Connecticut, an old 1750s farm and farmhouse. And there was this building there. It was like a 3-car garage that was, stone floor or whatever. And over the past 2 years, I fixed it up and renovated it and turned it into a studio, into a kitchen, into like just a really great place to be able to cook and experiment and have guests. That's where we cook. That's where we'll bake bread. We'll grow things in the garden. We can do whatever we want. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's great about it. But cooking projects, we're still going to do a lot of fermentation. We have guests up to the studio when it makes sense. And one of my favorite things about the 2 shows is, so say we're out, we're local legends, and we're showcasing you, Chris. You're a fisherman. You do this amazing job handling fish, catching fish, yada, yada. So we go down there, and instead of cramming, and we did this my entire career so far, and I feel like most people do it, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't care. It's what I want to do. I'm not trying to cram a cooking segment into what you're doing, because you're not cooking. You're catching fish. And there's so much depth and interest in that and a story worth showcasing. I don't want to dilute it. And again, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't want to dilute it with also cramming a cooking thing in there, because in order to fit, because we're not making an hour-long documentary, right? It's a 15-minute video. And in order to get that 30% of your video, which is now going to be a cooking segment, into this, I have to cut a lot of gems out that I'd love not to.
Yeah, now you're like with their trout that they caught or whatever, like making your trout amandine out in the woods or something. We've all seen those videos.
It's becoming about me and what I can do with it instead of what I'm here to, and that showcase what you're doing. So we can learn about that trout. We can learn about that person and what they're doing and all that. And then I can say, tune in next week to my show, Making It, where we're going to take this trout that Chris caught and handled, and I'm going to bring it back to the studio. I'm going to show you a way that I like to prepare it. So, and then I can take time and do that properly that way,
So Making It, your first video that came out, you were doing sauerkraut. Yeah. You also did sauerkraut way back in the early days of It's Alive. So what is this bond with sauerkraut? Why did you want to do another sauerkraut video?
Because I always tell people when it comes to fermentation, start with a kraut, start with something like that. Cabbage is just the base. And this was the first one I did, years ago with Bon Appétit was just a straight cabbage sauerkraut. And it was great. This one, same type of principle, but we added some cucumbers to it, I believe. And maybe even some ramps. I forget exactly what we did. But I think it might have just been cucumbers and sauerkraut. And I just love it because it's for me and my family, it's just a staple food that, like, say you have a plate of rice and vegetables and chicken. I also have a scoop of a fermented vegetable, like a sauerkraut. And it's a fun way to fold in other types of vegetables and fruits and stuff like that into it. So you have your very base sauerkraut recipe, super simple. Literally anyone can do it, and it'll cost you $1.50. And then you can riff off of that. Back before, to like cooking, you have a foundation. And once you understand that principle, you can work out being scared of fermentation or what it is and kind of just get a feel for it. Then you can start experimenting. Then you can start fooling around with it and doing different things. Try, different recipes, try different ferments. And I just like it because it's approachable, it's delicious, and it's a great starting point for folks that want to get into it.
And I think cooking should be fun. Cooking videos should be fun. You're clearly both knowledgeable and entertaining, but how do you balance keeping the show light, maybe even a bit goofy, but still stressing like importance of sanitation and safety, especially with something like fermentation? I think, especially for people who've never done fermentation, there's a lot of questions. I myself, when I was getting into like making kombucha, was like, is this how it's supposed to go? So
am I going to die? Right. I mean, it's a big mystery. I mean, it's because it is scary, and it goes against what modern society and culture, especially in the United States, has kind of scared us to believe. I mean, let's face it, if fermentation was, and I'm not going to belittle, the sanitation and food, you do have to know what you're doing, especially with certain things, right? And you can get sick, and you certainly could, foodborne illnesses are a very real thing. I'm definitely not trying to downplay that. But what I am saying is, if it was that dangerous, we would all be dead, because we've been doing it for a very, very long time. People who didn't have soap, who didn't give didn't even know what the hell microorganisms essentially were, let alone the bad stuff that was causing it. But they were dialed in, and they knew through trial and error. And, you know, our ancestors they paved the road, and it's embedded. I think people are more designed to consume and be a part of fermentation than maybe some believe. You know, like our guts are literally designed for it.
Processed food is inherently more dangerous in theory and bad for us than fermented foods, right? Like, who knows what the long-term effects of eating bags of Cheetos are?
Oh, it can't be good. None of those things can be good. You know what I mean? And not to go down that rabbit hole. And the old cliche of, you know, if it looks like polyphenol monosucral or glycolosum, you probably don't need it in your fried potato stick. You know what I mean? Like, whatever happened to just, you know, fat in the potato or a little salt, preservatives, they scare the hell out of me. And fermentation, it was a product of necessity, right? It was pre-refrigeration. How do we get 50 cabbages that we grew to last longer, but then also taste better and taste different, and in return also be very good for our health and our gut, right? I mean, I'm really just on the tip of it. You know, I'm that rabbit hole of information. There's people, I mean, that are far more smarter and informative when it comes. If you want to really go deep on fermentation, you don't really need to hang out with me too much. I'm just as curious as everybody else is. I don't have a food science background. I don't have a microscope. I don't, you know what I'm saying? But I do have, like I said, a lot of folks there's a lot of information out there. And if you do your own research and don't rely on other people to just teach you, but do your own research and get involved in a community that knows what they're doing, or hell, go talk to an old person who's been, you know, an old lady who's been making kimchi or sauerkraut, if you're lucky enough to meet someone or know someone like that.
Burying it in the backyard, right? Like, isn't that kimchi? Didn't they just like put it in crocks and bury it in the yard?
Absolutely. Throwing an oyster in it, you know, and just pick some brains, get involved in it. I mean, I'll be doing more, and there's a ton of information and people online there's a community, and it's absolutely amazing. And it's really the birthplace, and I think that where umami came from, right? I think fermentation is the father or the mother of umami, right? That depth, that sense, that lactic acid, that amino acidy type of tang. It's delicious. It's a little funky. It's a little weird, but like you for some reason crave it and you want it, and it gives that depth.
Now people are messing with koji as well. It's like the next step of the fermentation. It's like they've got the basics down, and now you see all these people, you know, doing their own koji at home and making koji charcuterie and all kinds of stuff. It's really been interesting to watch.
Yeah, exactly. But meanwhile, there's families in Asia who have been doing it for thousands of years. I mean, it's literally nothing new. It's the complete opposite.
Going back to the test kitchen stuff, you know, we kind of talked about how hard the industry is and all this. And I think a lot of people don't want to work in restaurants, but want to work in culinary. So they're thinking of things like the test kitchen. But that is also incredibly hard, I imagine. Is it not? You know, I don't want people to think like, oh, I don't want to work 90 hours a week in a restaurant, so I'm going to work at a test kitchen, which is always so fun and interesting and not that hard. So can you pull the curtain back a little bit on what it's like to work in a test kitchen, especially at the level of Bon Appetit?
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely difficult, you know, and a lot of folks had it a lot harder than I did as videos started to take off and I could just focus on that. But yeah, developing recipes and really just like working. Yeah, it's hard as hell, man. Like it's easy to cook, right? But it's not easy to have a bulletproof recipe that someone who's a recipe follower, it's got to work, man. And it's got to work well. And what you write has to make sense. And your ingredient list and your instructions have to make sense. It has to work. And it is challenging. And it was a real testing process amongst each other and the coworkers and our peers, and bouncing ideas off of each other and just workshopping things, you know, and some were easy and some were hard, and definitely not an easy job, just better hours.
Now, are you testing all the recipes that come from restaurant chefs? Like the hot new restaurants issue comes out and it's got recipes from all these chefs, but you guys are testing them all yourself in the kitchen?
I've been speaking for Bon Appetit, and I don't think every publication, every food magazine did this. In fact, I kind of know they didn't, but Bon Appetit would, and I don't know if they still do, but I'm assuming they do. They would test every single recipe, and they would cross-test every single recipe. So not only the person who is developing it or working through it, But once they were happy with it and done, then they would have a fresh person, an editor or whomever who was working or in the test kitchen, cook through it one last time, look for bugs, follow it like you were a reader, and just make sure that it actually does work. That really turned me on. I really dug that process of it where we could slow things down. You know, there wasn't a whole board of tickets and I wasn't freaking out, and it wasn't like, sure, it was stressful at times, but it was a different type of energy and a different type of cooking that I found that I liked.
Did you ever find it tedious to test the same recipe over and over and it just felt like you were working on this one dish for so long, or did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I mean, there were certainly times where like there was a recipe where like once it was done, you're like, everyone was like, thank God, see you later. Like no one wants to make Queen Amman again for 10 years. But you know, yeah, it was up and down as far as difficulty of stuff there. But yeah, really, really awesome experience. And I was really fortunate to be able to work there when I did.
Yeah, I worked for Sodexo in one of their units, but we have the test kitchen by where I am. And I had the opportunity to go with a small team one time for a week. And I had no idea, you know, like they wanted us to create new dishes for their database, which goes out to the whole world, right? So like I was making crab cakes. And I think I spent, you know, the whole week on that. It's like you're doing a 4-ounce cake, a 3-ounce cake. You're doing it at 350, 375, 400. It's like finish with the broil. I'm like, oh my God, I'm spending 8 hours a day for 5 days making one dish.
I know. Dial back. Let's do a quarter teaspoon instead of a half a teaspoon.
And then the scaling, because we were in large production. So we had to test it at the, 4 crab cake level. But for business dining where they're going to make 400, like, what does that look like? Oh, the Old Bay skewered like way off. You can't go from like a quarter teaspoon in 4 up to a gallon in 400. It just, so like we had to see like where that break point was where it started to get funky. It was interesting, but I don't know that I could do that all the time.
Yeah, no, that's where we never had to do like big scales like that, but I could see that not translating as just simple math when it comes to, like you said, with the Old Bay, like at a tablespoon, it's cool, but all of a sudden it's a gallon and it's like people are going to die.
Once you start putting like things like sesame oil, I had cooks all the time at the place I was working. You're like, what happened? Like, well, we scaled the recipe up. I'm like, did you taste it?
Did you taste it?
And that comes down to like intuitive cooking and knowing some things. Like you kind of have to be able to read this recipe and say like, oh, I don't know if I should put 3 cups of sesame oil in this dish. Like, go
But
easy.
A lot of people don't, Chris. It's like,
I know.
They go full Ron Burgundy. If it's on the screen, they're going to say it, man. And like,
I've seen that more times than I can count. And yeah,
people go full nuclear on it and just, even though it doesn't look right, why am I pouring a gallon of vegetable oil in this? But like recipe says it, so like, having things you do have to keep into consideration that a lot of folks, and to each their own, a lot of folks do cook directly as the recipe says. And that's fine.
Did you ever have any notoriously challenging recipes that you worked on or something that was particularly hard?
I'd have to put a little thought into it. It just feels like so long ago. I know it wasn't, but like it kind of was, because for the last 3 years at Bon Appétit, even a little bit more, I wasn't doing any recipe development anymore. I was full-time video. And that kind of happened. It went from print and being a test kitchen and I was almost better at that back then, when it was just like, we were just doing recipes and we were just working on, not just, it was a lot, but it was a full-time job already. And then it became this like weird kitchen studio as well. And it worked, but then it didn't, you know what I mean? And like, it's hard to do both, because at the end of the day, the folks that are doing I don't want to say the hard work, but the folks that are doing the recipes and cross-testing everything and aren't in front of a camera still had to do all that. And meanwhile, there was a whole, energy and distraction of shooting video in the same space. So yeah, I could see how that was probably a ticking time bomb.
Well, and that's, kind of now thinking about where we're all at, as it's like you almost have to be a content creator, regardless of what industry you're in. You know, I'm a personal chef and I don't have a team, but everyone's like, well, you got to be making videos. And, you know, it's really hard for me. Like, I'm just prepping for this dinner, but I also feel like I need to have a tripod and a camera out, or I'm at this dinner.
And a TikTok and an Instagram and a YouTube page. And
100%, you know, and that's challenging.
Exhausting.
Yeah. And if you don't have the budget for that, like I don't really have the budget to hire a camera crew for that right now. So like trying to do that myself, and you kind of get burned out, but then you're like, oh, well, I guess like I make these videos and then more people see it and they hire me, or there's new opportunities. But I feel like everyone has to be a content creator. And I do think it's starting to burn a lot of people out. Like if you're a one-man show.
I'm blown away by it all the time, just looking on, you know, social media, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And how many people are putting so much work into it? And I'm assuming they're not getting paid for it. It's just like a part of this cultural information sharing portal digital world that's awesome, but also kind of freaky. I think it's an interesting time, right? I'm super grateful that I'm in a spot where I can, you know, and I am, you know, making a living and doing stuff that it seems like a lot of people would love to do and are trying to do and are doing. I mean, hell, let's face it, there's millions of people making awesome content. And as people, I'm always blown away with it because I'm a little bit, I mean, I'm not real old, but I'm kind of a little bit of a dinosaur in that age. I mean, like I'm 38. You know, I was the last one on Instagram in my circles and at work and stuff. And I never thought I was going to be, you know, doing something on YouTube. I don't watch YouTube unless it's like how to take the screen off of my iPad or something. Like it's right. I love YouTube for how to do stuff. But I don't really consume much entertainment on it. And maybe that's a good thing. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I was just talking about that with a guest last week about how if anything breaks, like I had a problem with my sliding door in my van, and I just like went on YouTube. It's like someone's got to show me how to like shut the automatic door off and fix this.
What blows me away, Chris, is that someone actually made that video.
Yes.
Like some guy named Peter, who's someone's dad, who when he got the tools, he's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to make a video about how to fix the roller on this sliding door. Because why?
And he's not trying to get famous. It's not like a repair channel.
It's this weird phenomena of you can share your stuff on the internet. It's awesome. It's why TV is pivoting. It's why the world's changing, right? Like the ability to share so much information and tell your story for basically free. I mean, hell, you don't need a team to create something. You could just shoot it however you want, right?
But as these channels get bigger, you know, like you, a lot of people have content teams. And I don't think everyone always realizes what goes into that as well. You know, I have young kids. They want to be YouTubers, of course. You know, and I was talking to someone the other day who has a popular YouTube channel. And I asked, you know, I said, like, so you've got this 10-minute video. How long did this take to make? Well, this one particular took 7 months, right? Like with travel time and collab and stuff, it's like 7 months to get a finished 10-minute video. It's not like he just grabbed his camera and his buddies. It took 7 months of coordinating. That's a lot of work to get 10 minutes of content out of.
Likely a lot of resources too. You know, I mean, like in the world of different tiers of it. I mean, back to your question before, like creative isn't the problem. It's like, how the hell am I gonna? It has to make sense. At the end of the day, it's not a hobby, right? Like it is a business, right? We do want to. I would love to, you know, not just do this for free. You know what I mean? Like I would like to make money doing it, you know. And that's kind of where we're figuring stuff out as well too. Like the balance of production and overhead. I mean, like the show Making It, that one is a lot easier and cheaper for me to make, and it probably will even do better than Local Legends, you know. Because it is food and it's approachable, but I'm never going to stop wanting to also make some of the like Local Legends is expensive and it's hard to make. And it takes a lot of editing and a lot of pre-production. And, you know, say we go to Maine, I got to, you know, I am the production company. So I got to pay for lodging and meals and, you know, no one's working for free. Hell, nor should they, you know, it's not a charity. As long as I can, I want to also be able to make those videos as well, if not only those videos. In a perfect world, I would love to just do that. You know what I mean? Like Bourdain never, and I'm no Bourdain, trust me, but like, not that I need to tell you that, but he never cooked a damn thing.
Yeah. But I mean, I get the Bourdain vibe from your show, though, that feel of like traveling and meeting people, because I mean, he clearly kind of set the bar and the standard, right? Because prior to him, people weren't traveling around really highlighting places and people like he did. And there have been a few shows afterwards, but having watched the one with you, I guess the only one you have now, you definitely get that feel.
Thank you, man. And man, like I said, we're just getting better at it too, and figuring it out, and just kind of flirting with that world of. I know folks do like the cooking, and I like doing it as well, and I'm not going to stop doing it, but I do like exercising the muscle of storytelling and telling people stories. It can be in the food world or not, but just like a behind the scenes thing that we kind of, as a civilization, kind of often take for granted. Life's pretty easy now for a lot of us. You can go to a supermarket or a store and get anything, in almost one store, and not you can go into any store and every ingredient, everything you touch, I would just want to follow those roads, how did it get here? Who did it? From the guys from the people loading up the truck. This is a good show idea. Let's make it, Chris.
Yeah, I'm down. I'll co-host anything.
Just showing the food lines, where things come from.
Well, but, and this is also a totally different skill set. I moved from being a chef to being a podcast host, but my first shows were very much, tactical. How do you do this? You have a food truck operator on, he's going to tell you how to do that. Well, once you've done a couple of those shows, I don't need another food truck operator come tell you how to start that business. I need to tease out the stories from them. I need to interview them. And that was a whole different thing besides just sitting and saying, well, what's your advice to starting a food truck? Now it's like, tell me about, that time with your mother making hamburgers. Like, how did that impact? And that's very different. And I had no training on that. So it's completely learning on the fly for me.
Yeah, same with me. But I love it. And I couldn't agree more that I was that human element of it. You know what I mean? Like the guy who, a great story, and it's not my own by any means. It's been told a bunch, right? But you go into a famous Italian restaurant here in Manhattan, and who's the guy, cooking the best, cacio e pepe ever had? It's a guy from Oaxaca who's, hasn't seen his family in 4 years because he's here cooking and working his ass off and sending money. That's the story. I don't give a shit about the pasta. That's the story. That's the thing I want to tell. That's the video I want to make,
And with your making it and kind of educational type videos, you're somewhat of a teacher. So who, in your career of cooking, who did you really admire or look up to as far as being a teacher? Whose content, whose videos, whose books were you reading? Who did you learn from? Were there people you really enjoyed learning cooking and food related stuff from?
I mean, not to say his name a ton, but Bourdain. I mean, I feel like I'm me and 50 million other people, way before I was into food or before I went to culinary school. Man, that was the show. He got it. Rest in peace, but you could almost see the suffrage in him a little, you know what I mean? He was a little bit of a tortured man, but he got into it and did things in the way that I would want to travel with him, not Guy Fieri. You know what I'm saying? He was a little bit more real, a little bit more grit to it. He got it. And not to mention an amazing speaker. He had a great voice but yeah, I really dug Bourdain. And oddly enough, I was an inspiration when I first got the job at Bon Appétit. I remember watching Matty Matheson on Vice, and he had a show. I forget what it was before he was out on his own. He was doing something on Vice, I forget what it was called. But I was like, damn, man, this guy's having a blast. He's traveling all over the place. He's doing cool stuff. He gets it. I like Matty's show. And then, turning the dial a couple of years, I was hanging out with him and shooting some videos with him and stuff. And
some of those are ridiculous, the fishing videos with it. You guys seem to be kind of cut from the same cloth there a little bit. I think he can outdo you in the entertainment video section.
We had a lot of similarities, but also very different. I was more comfortable in the water and with creatures. Matty was a city boy, so and he'd be the first one to tell you. So that was a fun dynamic. I mean, that was I think we'll do some more stuff together, hopefully. I mean, I know he's doing his own thing nowadays and killing it. He'll tell you the same thing. I think it's the most requested video for us to do again. I or commented on, or, you know, hey, when you got to do another thing with Maddie, and he says, you know, people say the same thing to him too. That so hopefully in the future we'll be able to make a series or do something together in that world. I already have a title for it and a bunch of ideas. We just need someone to pay for it.
Maybe a guest appearance on The Bear, even like you're an assistant dishwasher repairman or something, you know, like just I'm putting it out into the universe. We're going to manifest that.
Thank you. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I'm a big fan of visualizing and putting things out there. And maybe I'm a perfect example of it. On paper, I shouldn't even be talking to you. You know, I should be swinging a hammer and married to some girl that I didn't want to marry. And you know what I'm saying? Like on paper, my life should have probably went a much different route. So yeah, I'm a big fan of positive energy and putting things out there. And at the end of the day, just be a nice person. Be someone that people want to work with. You know, I always tell people, ask me, Brad, you know, you got advice for, I'm trying to get into, you know, the food space, or I want to working in test kitchens or something like that. I was like, I am not the best cook. I am not the best writer. I am not the best anything, but people like to hang, people like to work with me. I wasn't a dick. I wasn't an asshole, you know? And like, I remember a chef one time told me, when I'm looking for someone to cook in my restaurant, I don't need someone who thinks they're the best chef. I don't need someone who knows how to cook everything. I need someone who isn't an asshole. I need someone that listens and that isn't, you know, that I can teach you how to make a vinaigrette. I can teach you everything in this restaurant that you need. I can't teach you how to be a pleasant person.
100%.
And that really stuck with me.
You know, we would sometimes have people come in, and stage isn't the word, but like maybe do like a 1 day or even a couple hour trial when I was at a place. And I almost wasn't even looking at the food they were cooking. It was like, how did they interact in the kitchen? Because we'd have them do it, you know, during like prep time. It's like if a cook walked by with their hands full and was trying to get in the walk-in, like, did you go over and grab the door and open it for them? Just kind of things 100%. Like that, as opposed to like how you were making that food, because I want to see how you're going to gel with the team. And if you're like putting your food, like, oh, I got to get this dish right for the chef, and you don't give a F about anyone else in the kitchen, like that's a sign that it's not going to work out long term.
I couldn't agree more, Chris. I think it's crucial. And I think that no matter what field you're in, I think that is something that is you could certainly just apply.
If you weren't working in food and food media, what would you be doing? Do you have any other passions that you could see yourself doing? I'd
probably be excelling as floor manager at a Home Depot.
Nothing wrong with that. You probably get a mad discount.
Damn right, there's nothing wrong with that.
You probably get paid more. You probably get paid more than working in the food space. I should maybe go pick up at least a part-time job.
No, you're probably right, man. You know, I'd probably do well. I'd probably work the ladder up and become an executive. I'd probably be a millionaire. No, I don't know, man. I guess I'll hard answer the question because the hard question to answer because it's truly unknown, right? I mean, I've always had a job, never had a problem getting a job. This one just happens to be the best one I've had. So, you know, one thing my dad told me that always stuck with me too was like, and this is always in the back of my head, because my whole time since I started this video stuff was like kind of pinching myself. Like this is gonna turn off any say like this really can't be happening, right? Like, so one thing my dad told me that always stuck with me was like, don't ever think you're above any job. And again, I'm sure there's some flaws in that statement, and there's certain things but like the principle of it is like, don't ever think you're better than the guy or the person who's working at McDonald's or the person who's working at Home Depot. So yeah, I mean, what job would I have? I don't know. I don't care. You know, I'll figure that out when I need to.
I don't know if you read the comments. I read the comments. I read the comments about my stuff, but I was actually reading the comments about your stuff. And people were clearly so excited to have you back. Just as I was watching your videos in preparation for this, all the comments are like, glad to see he's back. I would, make anything he would make. It must be great. And I don't know if you've seen these, but people just seem like, wow, he, wasn't making videos for a little bit. He's back now. And they seem super excited to have you back making videos.
And thank God, right? Because I did have a bit of a break shooting video. I was under contract with Bon Appétit for a few years, and in the last 2 years with them, we weren't really making that much content. And like, I get it. Like they were doing their own thing or whatever. And like, but I was in a locked up, like I couldn't go make a video with you, or I mean, it was
like a non-compete type thing.
Yeah, 100% exclusivity when it came to video hosting, stuff like that with them, which was fine. I was very happy to do that. But when we stopped making, listen, I'm not Brad Pitt or George Clooney. I can't just, take 2 years off. The world does not give a shit about me. You know what I mean? And there's plenty of better people and more talented people that are going to be putting out new stuff on YouTube. And like, if I don't stay on it, like, and again, this is just my inner heart talking, and certainly plenty of truth to it, but that was my inner clock was like, Brad, you need to be working the hardest right now. You're on the fence. You can either be forgotten in a year, or you can go up and become something really good, and that's where we're at. I'm trying to take it to the level I want to get at, and be able to tell the stories and work with brands and people that get it, man. And there's plenty of brands that want to work together and tell these stories, because I do think positive storytelling and human element embedded into food it can't all just be cooking competition shows, right? Like Bourdain left, and like there's a big void. There's a lot of shows that are doing certain things, and not that there aren't good travel shows, but like, I don't know, like none of them are really doing it for me. I don't need to see, no offense, Gordon, if you're listening, but I don't really need to see another Gordon Ramsay video where he's going to Africa and making some grain with, I don't give a shit anymore, Gordon. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, maybe I shouldn't brag on Gordon. I think he's doing a great job. And hell, I mean, he's a pioneer in that space, but point taken, plug in any name, you know what I mean? Like, it's just something that, I'm glad to be a part of.
And you talked about working with brands and clearly needing money. Like you clearly, I'm assuming, are working with Yeti, right? Like you've used them in your videos, and you even have the hilarious, almost like infomercial style with their stuff, which it's refreshing, because in this day and age where everyone's influencer, and it's like, are they promoting this product because they love it or because they're getting paid? It's nice to just like be out there. It's not a subtle cup on the side of your desk. It's like, we're just going to put this right in your face. I love this stuff. This is how I'm going to use it. Go nuts.
Yeah, heck yeah. Again, we got a really fun team that's really, we're trying to do, it's YouTube, so you got to take some risks. You got to try things out, have some fun with it. What I've got some really good advice from folks that understand YouTube a lot more than me. Thank you, Epic Ian, if you're listening. But, you got to be able to try different things. It's not like I try not to look at it like, all right, we have a show, we got to make a year's worth of content. And no, we got to be able to adapt and grow and evolve as we go. Because if I don't, then that's not it.
How many videos have you already shot for both of your shows? Do you have a lot already like recorded, done, and are getting ready to release?
Yeah, so we probably have about 15, 20 episodes shot. Shooting them at that point, it's the editing, man. Editing is the hard, it's not, it's one of the hard parts, but that's the time consumer, right? That's the, otherwise we could put out a video every other day, so like challenge, that's the challenge. But like, it's a tricky balance, right? Like me just being in a studio, talking to a camera like a crazy person, hey, to your point before, that is fun, but that's only going to be fun for so many people. So like being able to turn it into a little bit of a show where there's some information that, maybe I didn't get out with my mouth that we could put on the screen, or just have some fun with it, keep it where it's fun to watch, but you're also hopefully walking away inspired. You might get a recipe. These new videos, because there's no written out recipe in these, right? So like, but what we're doing is like, in the video, sometimes it'll be in the middle of it, or at the end, we'll have a card. It'll have a hold frame come up where we'll have all the ingredients and like the measurements, if it was applicable in that thing. So where people could like screen grab it or pause it and write it down, which I think is cool, because we never did that in It's Alive.
I mean, the editing is always the hardest part, in my opinion. So lastly, how would you describe the Brad Leone brand in 3 words?
Ooh. Well, I'll steal it from Bad Brains and we'll just go positive mental attitude.
Nice. I like that. It was almost like you had that on the tip of your tongue. And to our listeners, I did not prep him for this. So he's just that good.
That's right. PMA for life, baby. If you don't know Bad Brains, check him out. Really awesome band.
I live in the DC-ish area. So, I'm not from here, but like they're pretty loved around here.
I bet. DC is a kind of a hotbed for music, man, especially in that time frame.
It is. I love it. Like I'm about an hour outside of the city, but my favorite thing and the thing I missed most, maybe besides dining out during the early days of COVID was like going to live music. So I'm hitting it pretty hard this summer. Like I'm back out there going to shows, ideally if I could go at least once a week, I would.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah. That's one thing I miss about living in the city too. A was the accessibility of great takeout and food, but then just like, that culture.
Do you have any final words for your fans, your viewers, our listeners today? Anything you want to leave people with?
No, just thank you. Keep being beautiful and awesome. And if you want, check out my YouTube page. It's YouTube /Brad Leone. Just Google Brad Leone, Leone, and you'll go down a rabbit hole of really fun videos and time that you'll never get back.
I put a ton of stuff in the show notes, so I always link out to YouTube's social medias. We didn't even get into it, but you have a book that came out a couple years ago. People will be able to find that. I'll make sure if they don't already know you, they'll be able to find you. But I'm pretty sure most of my listeners will know who you are.
Well, heck yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much, man. It was a joy chatting with you and getting to meet you, even though it was on a video screen here. If you're ever up in the New England area again, feel free to swing through. We'll make a Makin It video together.
I would love that.
It was a blast, and I really appreciate it. And until next time.
Yeah, until next time. And to all of our listeners, this has been Chris with the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast. Thanks for listening, and have a great week. You're still here? The podcast's over. If you are indeed still here, thanks for taking the time to listen to the show. I'd love to direct you to one place, and that's chefswithoutrestaurants.org. From there, you'll be able to join our email newsletter, get connected in our free Facebook group, and join our personal chef, catering, and food truck database so I can help get you more job leads. And you'll also find a link to our sponsor page where you'll find products and services I love. You pay nothing additional to use these links, but I may get a small commission, which helps keep the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast and organization running. You might even get a discount for using some of these links. As always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Chefs Without Restaurants or send me an email at chefswithoutrestaurants@gmail.com. Thanks so much.